and press merge call. And now we are technically recording.
Yay.
All right. How's my audio? Do I sound okay?
Yeah, you sound good on our side when we tested it. How do we sound?
Sounds good to me.
Awesome. So we have Joe Payne. Why don't you tell everybody what you do?
Well, I'm a lifelong journalist. I was a former newspaper editor, but currently I am a part-time music teacher and freelance writer, piano tuner, performer, et cetera, et cetera. Keep going. There's other stuff, but we ain't got the time.
Yeah, we ain't got the time. And then we have Ryan Noss. Why don't you explain kind of who you are, Ryan?
My name's Ryan Noss.
Go ahead, you can say it. How's it spelled?
So R-I-O-N, like a lion with an R.
Kind of cool, huh?
I get shit done.
So you're kind of a communicator.
Yeah, I really like to give people the right tools to make the hard jobs easier. And we find ourselves in a situation where that's the case.
So I've known both of you for a very long time, and I think we should simply talk and try to communicate properly about what's going on and how we can kind of help it influence our immediate community.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and actually that starts with us as individuals. There's a lot of personal turmoil going on, a lot of changes for people. My people I know are canceling weddings. People I know are losing their jobs. Other people can't finish school, and they've been busting their butt for years. It's kind of a weird transition for a lot of people.
Well, I know Joe just had a personal experience with it. So, Joe, if you feel comfortable talking about that, why don't you share your trip?
Yeah, well, I went through LAX and JFK airports twice 2 weeks ago on a little vacay over to New York City. Tickets were bought, of course, well in advance of the pandemic. And, I believe, there's that point in the plane where right before they make you turn your phones off, where I was checking the news, and before, as we were leaving to leave LAX to New York, and that was when the first confirmed community spread in California was discovered, and then, landed in New York, and I believe the first case in New York was discovered while we were there, and then by the time we were leaving, they had their second case in California. It had already skyrocketed state of emergency by the time we got back. I'm listening to science and experts. The World Health Organization has reliable information to, basically social distance. I very densely overpopulated areas, and so, I just think it's incumbent on me on an individual level, as Ryan said, be responsible and limit my exposure to anybody else out there. Don't have health insurance, but even then, I'm not presenting symptoms, so I wouldn't get a test anyway, because they're being held except for those with very severe symptoms. So
thank you,
go
because
ahead.
we would have done this in person.
Yeah.
And eventually still would like to. Me not knowing your previous travel was the variable. And so you taking that personal accountability and responsibility to say, hey, some pieces of information you don't have. And then I said, thank you. You did travel through super dense population centers in, honestly, aluminum cans flying through the air with recycled oxygen, right?
Yep.
And I appreciate the reality that as a member of this community, you're also saying, and so I'm going to take it easy for a couple of days.
Yeah, well, part of that is I don't have a choice. The facilities I work at are public facilities. They've been shut down. I won't go into a lot of detail, but frankly, when I got back to the area, I was immediately concerned by the lack of response or even any acknowledgement that had gone on by local government, and so that was a concern for me. So while I know a lot of people want to talk about personal responsibility, like we have to understand that this is a collective problem. This is a human problem. I mean, this is, humanity, massive numbers of human lives are at stake. Globally, we have 167,506 confirmed cases as of today, with a total deaths of 6,606. Now, that's 3.9% mortality rate. That's getting close to 4%. Here in America, we don't have accurate numbers because we've had delays in testing, and a lot of that is due to, I just have to be real about it, government incompetence of the federal government and the current administration. I don't know if you're aware that the Health and Human Services Director is one of, is a pharmaceutical lobbyist, before he took that job, and was talking about the importance of the private sector to take care of this problem, as we were denying World Health Organization tests from coming into the country. So this is people, it's very easy to sit back and make fun of people on Facebook about getting toilet paper, but at the end of the day, those people are listening to experts who are saying you need to stay at home, and so they are collecting, what they need to stay at home. And, I get people that want to say don't panic, but at the same time, we see people going to bars, we see spring breakers in Florida, and people just not taking this seriously. And, you can be totally asymptomatic and still spread this virus, and then unbeknownst, or unknowingly pass it on to somebody in your life who might be elderly, might be immunocompromised, might have diabetes or any number of health issues that could make this possibly fatal.
I think this has definitely been a wake-up call to a lot of people on like where they land on the spectrum of vulnerability.
Oh yeah.
When some outside person starts making a list and you start checking off those boxes and you realize, hey, that looks like me when I look in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
That's concerning, especially when they're saying you are the one at the most risk.
Mm-hmm.
And so I agree with you on the scale of community and government that the actions didn't reflect the need. But now, those, like you were talking about a minute ago, those social problems also become social and community-driven solutions.
Yeah. Well, if there was ever a time where it was more obvious that we're all in this together, with the air quotes around it, then, this is it. And, it's just, I understand people who are skeptical of corporate media. I understand people who are skeptical of one political party over another. I get that. But I can't, I guess I do understand it on a kind of psychological level, but, people who really don't take science seriously, again, bodies. Go look at Italy. Italy, yes, it has one of the more elderly populations of Europe, but they kind of fumbled their initial response, and the whole country's on lockdown. Newspapers are running nothing but obituaries, and crematoriums are running 24 hours a day. So that's, if you care about anybody who, isn't you, you're going to act accordingly. You're going to take this seriously, and you're going to act accordingly. This is where we're at. Nobody's saying to panic. Nobody's saying to, freak out. But we have to take this seriously. Governor Newsom is not an authoritarian dictator for shutting down, industries, or actually he hasn't really shut anybody down. He's recommended that bars, shut down and restaurants go to half capacity. Just because this is unprecedented. This is public health, and public health is, public safety. So that's where we're at.
Well, health in general is how you defend yourself against disease and illness.
Yeah, but when we're talking about viruses, we're not just defending ourselves. We're defending everybody. We have to stop thinking about this as, something that, if you wash your hands and, yes, wash your hands, yes, wear face masks if you can. But, I mean, this is much bigger than, all we can do is act as individuals, but we also have to have a collective effort against this. And, I mean, the government's the only way to do that, and we have to hold our government accountable, so.
Right. So what for you would be the indicator that the government's doing what they need to do so that you can rest easy as you sit in your house for, I don't know, how long are you planning on doing this?
Pretty much everybody is right now saying 2 weeks at least. And this is about flattening the bell curve. It's funny that I'm actually taking a statistics class right now. I'm learning about distribution. No kidding, man. No kidding. So the idea of flattening the curve, what that actually means, another thing I failed to mention in Italy is that, doctors, the healthcare system there, and they actually have a system, it's not just an industry, their healthcare system is so taxed by the number of people coming in that they're doing triage with ventilators, which means there are people they're deciding who lives or dies because they have a lack of supplies. Our system isn't, we have a private healthcare system. I don't have health insurance currently because I'm working part-time. A lot of Americans don't have health insurance. And a lot of Americans have stayed away from attempting to get tested, just out of fear of the cost, so, I mean, I don't want to soapbox and get onto my personal political, stuff. I think if people read between the lines, they'd probably guess, who I'm into. But the government needs to act in an unprecedented way to, come on, like we just to name names, we had a guy, Andrew Yang, who was in the Democratic primary, brought up universal basic income. That was kind of his bailiwick. Give everybody $1,000 a month. Mitt Romney just said we should do this now in the face of coronavirus. Cut everybody a check for $1,000, kind of like Bush's stimulus, except $1,000 for everybody. That's a start, but that's just thinking about the economy. You know what I mean? That's not addressing. I think this crisis has illustrated a lot of stuff that. A lot of the inequities and just, I don't know, a lot of the inequities and illogic of our system,
I like that. It does not seem to be logical if this is the end result.
Well, it's not that this is the end result. It's that this is a challenge to the system that we have. And, when people, you look on Facebook every day and people are posting photos of empty shelves at stores. This is showing what our system just through, a bit, a real crisis, what can happen. I'm really glad that, people aren't, super panicking. People aren't shooting each other over rolls of toilet paper yet, but, again, like I think I said this to Jeremy earlier when he called me, I just hope more people will treat this less like an episode of The Walking Dead, and they're, getting stockpiling, they're loading all their rifles or whatever, and are instead, thinking maybe more along the lines of what good, I think, for you to talk about, Ryan, which is, having a food supply that's, out, not just the supermarket down the street. It doesn't rely on semi-trucks and supply lines and, the agribusiness, but, hey, I grow tomatoes in my backyard. I can tomato sauce, et cetera, et cetera.
You do? That's awesome.
I mean, those things are cool. Those things are great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that what you just touched on there, Joe, is why I was like, okay, I need to connect these types of people real quick because it sounds like we're all scared and we all need to really communicate and network and make sure that we're simply going to be okay. and there's like maybe 3 different scenarios that we should lightly prepare for. I'm kind of being vague.
Well, here's the nice part. I didn't know you had traveled. You don't know what I've been doing. You should, because it'll help you go through the self-isolation, which I appreciate. And because of that, we can tap you into meal services and deliveries. We can tap you into what's edible in your backyard. So you don't even have to go to a grocery store, because you should have planted the garden last year if you want to eat the tomatoes this year. See what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Well,
I don't really have much of a yard. I rent a duplex,
I know, I'm not worried about that.
studio.
But the
I
nice part about it is that's how communities thrive and help each other through. And we're already doing that, because there are people who maybe aren't self-isolating and circumstantially isolated because of health and illness and disability or something else. And because of that, they've been isolated for years. And so how is our community taking care of those people? Because, like you said with Italy, the system is already taxed. If you went to the AG hospital or Santa Maria hospital, they only have so many defibrillators or respirators or IV bags or whatever it might be. And having even a bump of 15%, an extra 15 people out of 100, right?
Yeah.
That's too many. You know, they're everybody, because of the business variable, well, how few can we have? What's the contract goes to the lowest bidder versus the one that's going to provide something that has a longer shelf life, because you might need it a few years from now,
Yeah.
And so those are part of system changes, which as a society we get to determine, because at the end of the day, we're the ones going to try to figure out how to wipe our own butts, and the government's going to send us some checks.
Hopefully. Here's the thing. Like, I'm engaging in social isolation, but, if I need groceries, I go to the grocery store. You know what I mean? This is about limiting. I would rather have someone
deliver you a meal than
I'm making my own meals. I'm making my own meals. That's the thing. Somebody who's going to deliver me a meal, they're still going to make contact with me to deliver that meal. They're putting themselves at risk by doing that job. They're putting me at risk. I don't know if they've been exposed. Maybe I haven't. So this is just the thing. Like, it's not that we can't. It's not that we're all just going to shut ourselves into our houses and society's going to just shutter completely. But we have to act accordingly. This is a threat. This is a real threat. This, and again, it's a public health, public safety crisis. So
what is the recommendation that you're going to follow? And as part of the community, how can we best support you in helping everybody else out too? And I don't mean that just for you, but it's like that question
needs to be asked and communicated.
If people are coming around, like, so I work with a lot of different people, and here's an example where the kids go to the preschool and see the same kids they see every day, and they're all petri dishes, developing immune system, and they're the least ones, vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
But their parents are the ones who are the nurses and the doctors and the other people.
Yeah.
And I know a young woman who's got 2 kids. The kids are now out of school for 6 weeks. You maybe can find a babysitter for one night, right?
Yeah, I'm aware.
So now you have the mother, who's a nurse, who's now got to go home and take care of her kids.
Yep. Yeah, I just read a piece about a doctor who...
A stress on the healthcare system.
It's an incredible amount of stress on doctors on an individual level, on the system, on manufacturing for that, everything. I mean, so again, this is a crisis. I don't know what I can do other than be informed, stay informed, do what I can, as far as limiting exposure and all that. It's a real thing, man. I just read a story about a doctor who she literally like strips on her front porch and runs straight to her shower because she's terrified of infecting her home and infecting her children because she's working specifically with coronavirus patients. So, yeah, man, I don't know. I can't say what needs to be done for sure. Different countries are taking different steps. The government of Spain just took over all health services. Like they nationalized private hospitals, and they've even called on fourth-year medical students to join, like the fray, as it were, to help the crisis. So I mean, we don't know how bad it's going to get here. Like right now, limiting like social distancing is just so we can try to bring the numbers down when it really blows up, because it's building speed now. We're basically a few weeks behind Italy and other countries like Spain. And so we're just trying to make it now so that when it does really hit local health care providers, that, yeah, they're not triaging and, deciding who lives or dies based on how many respirators there are. You know what I mean? That's where we're at now. I don't know how bad it's going to get here. I don't know, what's going to happen or.
Well, that's actually the nicer part about it. We don't know.
Yeah.
But we do know that we're part of the variables. And so, like you said, at this time, there's self-isolation taking place. At other times, it'll be focusing on, socializing communities and understanding resources and working together. There's a lot of variables that change. It sounds like you've got quite a bit of travel under your belt, and so you see how different societies or communities react.
I really don't. I just read. That's it.
Okay, so a lot of.
I went to New York recently. That's the farthest I've been from home.
Well, how was that walking around on the street? Airports are always crazy, so I mean that's just the.
It was interesting, man. We went to Chinatown and to get some dumplings, and our friend was like, "Oh my God, there's no line! Like it's always packed here." He was just amazed by how few people were out in New York City, even though to us it seemed like a crowded city, but not to a New Yorker. So, New York is basically about to shut down too. And you have tens of millions of people going in and out and being there every day. So, it just makes sense. I don't know, man. Yeah, I mean, there's the politics of it, and then there's just the bigger picture of, this is humanity's been through pandemics before.
Yeah.
Life, the survival. I think what we're seeing a lot of people when we talk about panic is people's survival mechanism is kicking in, and civilization is such that we have, removed or at least attempted to remove many of, these barriers that the natural world or these hurdles the natural world throws in front of us in terms of survival. And, because of the development of civilization and people living, in more densely populated areas, and then the realities of factory farming, the realities of feeding tens of millions of people every day in China, to America and everywhere in between, like this, this is like in California, we're very used to the wildfire threat. You know what I mean? If you're told to get the heck out of your area, you get out because, we saw what happened. People were burned alive in their homes in Paradise, trying to open their garage doors, getting asphyxiated. So this is a biological wildfire that's tearing through humanity. And we have to think of it, in broader terms than, me and mine or whatever. That this is, people keep likening it to World War II, that it's this existential threat. But even then, there are authoritarian fascist regimes right now that are very concerning, but they're taking a hit from they are falling victim to this as well. This is totally indiscriminate. When people like Tom Hanks and Idris Elba, test positive and are,
Now,
all the way down to the poorest among us. This is a human problem.
I agree with you 100% on the humanity as a whole. The whole planet. This is one big sphere, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you have individuals that people have name recognition, that brings it home even closer to them.
Yeah, man. Tom Hanks, national treasure.
Exactly, right?
Infected.
But here's some of the dilemma. That means that this person who majority of Americans would never even meet ever, but feels like they have a place at the family table, right?
Yeah.
I've probably watched them for 30 or more hours. You
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Love hung out with him more like that than other people.
Exactly, yeah.
So you have an individual like that who is diagnosed with an illness that causes 97, according to statistics you most recently read, about 97% of the people to survive.
Yeah. Survive.
Right. I'm not worried.
Not our harmed, are injured and are still in extreme cases. This is the thing, like if people really want to get overly informed about this, there's a great series on Netflix called Pandemic. Great time to binge watch a pandemic documentary series. But we're basically lucky, man. We're lucky,
very lucky
that this isn't H5N9, which is like an insane mortality rate. We are lucky that coronavirus is not more serious. It's serious. We need to take it serious, but
we are vulnerable. We need to have a reality check with that.
This is a part of life.
But this is something that actually, when it comes to the other things that are part of life, we're grateful that it's less than 5% mortality rate in comparison to, like you were saying, the H1N1 or other.
And again, we're up to like H5N9 now with that particular strain, and it's. I mean, this is the thing. Like, I think it's going to lead to some good change, and it already has. There's been some evidence that there's been some change in China as far as like, what they allow in open air markets. Because if you watch this pandemic documentary, like a lot of these viruses happen or they get this way because of open air markets, like in Wuhan, China, where, they'll literally have a stack of like a cage of chickens, next to a cage of ducks on top of a cage of ferrets or python or whatever. And so you have these viruses hopping from species to species, and then they hop to us. And we don't have a genetic history of dealing with it because, it's been, nature wouldn't throw that at us. Nature wouldn't stack a cage of ferrets on a cage of ducks. That's something humans do. The natural world doesn't create superbugs. There's a lot of things we do that nature does not do, like monocropping or, whatever, so factory farming. So, this is where I've been interested in Joel Salatin and polyphasic farming and this kind of holistic agriculture and sustainable agriculture, just because, from a purely,
Have you heard about one called regenerative agriculture?
Of course, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Because even in some of these labels, right, it's trying to figure out the reality of not just taking, but giving back and making it healthier after you've taken something out of it.
Yeah.
And I mean that's not a sustainable. That's literally the ideal. And there's different practices that allow us to do that today.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of positive system changes we can make to avoid this vulnerability. And it's really great to hear that not just watching Pandemic on Netflix, but it sounds like you've also been exposed to the whole world of YouTube where you're seeing Bill Salatin or reading books. I guess maybe you prefer to read, so maybe reading some of the different books and Mark Shepard and Gabe Brown and so many other individuals who this is what they do every day, and they've been doing it for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And providing for their families and communities and running successful businesses. You know, it's not just some far-fetched fantasy.
And they've also been clearly warning us that the system that we have now is untenable and dangerous.
Yeah.
So there's that too.
From your perspective and the whole experience of your life, do you have maybe 3 things that you would recommend people just kind of keep in mind so that as they're in your situation, as an example, you know, instead of maybe binge watching 12 hours of a scare you to death, we're all going to die series, do you have a few recommendations that they might want to follow up on and maybe help them be smarter and more comfortable through this time?
Yeah. Number 1, do not be afraid to be informed. Okay? This is why more people are just saying, I don't like politics, or, oh, I don't really, you know, or this is why we have anti-vax hysteria and measles outbreaks. This is why, you know, people throw their hands up and say all the media lies, it's all fake news, or all the politicians are corrupt. You know, it's because people don't want to put in the work to be informed. And it's work. Don't get me wrong. Like, this is the thing, like, when I try to talk politics with people, it's like politics is so many things. It's economics, it's history, it's culture, it's, you know what I mean? And then there's just how the government works. Most people don't even understand. You know,
because you use this as number 1 with something a little bit more. I can do this afternoon, right? Because some people are like, man, I'm not sure tomorrow's going to happen.
Well,
and would that be recommending, you know, going outside for a few minutes, or you see what I mean? It's like I'm trying to cut some of this paranoia off, but I
here's the thing.
That leads to figuring the other stuff out too.
Well, you can read Stoic philosophy if you want, and just, you know, try to, you know, realize that life, or Buddhism, and realize life is suffering, and just, you know, embrace that part of it. But I really want to focus on number 1 because everything falls out from that. Don't be afraid to be informed. Why? Because, and I would say number 2 is build a basic scientific literacy, okay? You know, just understand, try to come to understand how scientific studies work, how, you know, what a double-blind placebo trial is, you know, and just try to understand the scientific method, how it works. And that way, when you read reports in the media, you'll understand what a 4% death rate means. And instead of just hearing scary words and freaking out, you'll have a base of knowledge. And this is the thing, when we talk about personal responsibility as Americans, it's all of our personal responsibility to be informed. And I mean, that's how we keep this game of democracy going, hopefully, is by being informed citizens and casting informed votes, so we have informed representatives. And so if you're not afraid of informing yourself, try to, try number 3 would be where you get your information. Get a wide variety of information. Don't just go to one side or the other, or, you know what I mean, just corporate news or just independent news. You gotta fan out. Beyond that, stay connected with your friends and family. Use this time of social distancing to call people you don't normally call. You know, I was glad to get a call from Jeremy because we don't talk all the time. It's a great time yeah, man, it's a great time to have phone conversations, connect with your family, connect with people, FaceTime. You know what I mean? Just because we're isolating socially doesn't mean we can't be social in the information technology revolution, you know. I have an app where I'm playing chess, chess.com, where I'm playing chess with a few of my friends, and we're chatting about, man, this is crazy, isn't it? We'll be okay, you know. So there's a way to, build support and solidarity among each other. But
following the recommendations to maintain larger, healthy communities.
Absolutely. To take seriously the recommendations of experts and, scientists and doctors. And if they're saying this is what we need to do, we need to isolate. If come a month from now, we don't have any more deaths or confirmed cases, say it just stays right here and then precipitously goes down, there might be people who say, oh, it was all for nothing. What a bunch of paranoia. And in fact, they'll be wrong, because it won't be as bad because we all did the right thing and we listened and we didn't, we did more than just make fun of people, with toilet paper memes. We actually, took it serious, hunkered down, did the bare minimum so that, if you look at what happened in Washington, this old folks' home got infected, and this virus tore through the whole damn place. People, standing outside of where grandma is, they can't go in, and their loved ones are dying. You know what I mean? And there's nothing they could do because the whole place is quarantined. So that's what could happen here. There are a lot of rest homes in Santa Maria. There are a lot of retired older people in the Central Coast, and so. If we care about our communities, we have to act like it. And,
well, I really appreciate your recommendation about how the phone goes both ways. That if you find yourself isolating, then that's also the initiative that you need to communicate, especially with people that you might identify with being vulnerable or older, maybe not as much social interaction, to touch base with them and see how they're doing.
And I know it's uncomfortable to tell people when they're wrong. This is a thing a lot of people really are afraid to do is call each other out on stuff. But if you have a friend who's being irresponsible and is going out tonight for St. Patty's or whatever, is still throwing their house party, you might be unpopular. I'm used to being the unpopular guy who's also big, mostly because he's right and he won't shut up about it when he is. You know what I mean? So, we all have to kind of step up and be like, no, man, this is not cool. That's irresponsible. Don't you care about the old people in this community? Don't you care about so-and-so who has diabetes or so-and-so, who, has whatever immunocompromising situation? Human solidarity, man. It's about dang time.
Right? Because we all have people that are being affected and or scared, and we are having to help calm them down. We all have people who have forms of cancers or heart attacks or broken down immune systems. My brother wouldn't have made through this at all, not to get personal. And to get more on point, though, is what I really want to be able to do by having people communicate like this in this day and age at such a time, even in just our local community, is how do we help keep each other calm? And I think there's a lot of things that you said that can definitely help with that. But I really want to shed some, how can I help my neighbors right now, and how can my neighbors help me?
Yeah, well, number one is keep your distance, social distance. And here's the thing, if you want to get your head off of the freaking out and what the hell's going to happen, where I've lost gigs, you've lost gigs, we're all losing money, we're all losing all this stuff, and you're stuck at home. If you're like me and you're an able-bodied, healthy person, this is the time to do that stuff you've been putting off. My wife and I did deep cleaning. We're calling it spring/pandemic cleaning. We're deep cleaning our, house. We're cooking in the kitchen. We have stuff in the freezer. You know what I mean? It's actually really empowering to do stuff for yourself.
You got time.
Yeah, you got the time, man. I'm practicing my piano more for a wedding gig I may not end up getting. It may be canceled. But, hey, I need to know this music anyway. And I started writing a song. You know what I mean? There's just read a book. You know what I mean? If you're a video gamer, it'll do your live stream, whatever you want to do. You have the time, but it's also a good time to take control of what you can. You know what I mean? What your area, and that gets a lot into the individual self-help type stuff. Jordan Peterson, clean your room or whatever. All that.
Yes, Jordan's been telling us a lot of things for a long time.
Yeah, well, again, don't rely on just one guy for your information, because that dude, I mean, a lot of problems.
I want to go back to what you were saying about how taking the opportunity to take control, and that's something actually a lot of people reference for, like, the virtual world, playing a video game. You know, oh crap, I just died, pause, reset, hit that reset button, learn from the experience, and now you keep playing. You know, we as a society are kind of doing that now, and it sounds like you're practicing the piano and practicing cooking and having a little bit more time and finally getting to that project. You're going to, I mean, if you don't get something other than the normal seasonal, because we're still in that phase, and if you don't have horrible allergies, because we're going to have an amazing spring this year, right?
Oh, I've been loving this rain. It really adds to the ambiance of a pandemic when you're just rained in, you know?
Right? Oh, yeah. It definitely hasn't helped people feel warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, it's okay. I love the rain. I don't know if it's my Scottish DNA, but it just fires up when it's cold and cloudy and wet. So I'm just like, yes, I feel alive.
But it sounds like you're going to leave this experience healthier. You know, your relationships and your home.
That's the thing. Like, you know, if we can silver lining, I mean, that's a great thing humans are good at doing. If you ever have a chance to read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, this was a psychologist who survived the Holocaust and, you know, was on a literal Nazi death march. And realized that, like, we all prescribe meaning to our own lives, and that's what makes life beautiful and worth living, is what we make meaningful in it, the people we love and the people who are important to us. You know, just the way I think and have thought for a long time is, you know, I love my family, I love my friends, but I also extend that love to everybody. And if you saw Joaquin Phoenix's acceptance speech, also to other species, right? So you try to, you know, balloon that out and just have a default love and compassion for everything and everybody. You know, I mean, you know, I've wept for all these people who are dying. You know what I mean? It's terrible. It's sad. You know, and that's why, you know, I'm not just operating from a knee-jerk, got to protect mine and my own. That's your reptile brain. I'm using the full, you know, suite of primate, human, Homo sapiens, consciousness to, you know, realize that this is a huge issue. We're going to get past it, but we need to act accordingly. And hopefully, when we're on the other side of it, we'll have gained some perspective, you know, and it won't just be co-opted to, you know, for nefarious purposes, as crises so often are.
Well, that's why we have powerful documenters like yourself and journalists and people helping remind us about what's real.
We're super popular right now, journalists. Everyone loves us right now. I'm not sure you're aware.
Yeah.
Nobody ever says anything bad about journalists these days.
Well, I like it.
Thanks. I know. I'm
it's
just
important
kidding
to
around.
tell the stories. See, for most people, they only know their story.
Yep.
And so, therefore, when anything affects them, this is catastrophic. But if you, like you were saying earlier, have perspective, you go, oh, I got to do what I have to do, but we're going to get through this. It's okay. It's just a flat tire, and we have a spare. Right? If you don't know that, you're terrified you're broken down on the side of the road. Yeah. But the reality is you have these tools, you have these resources. Jeremy's telling me about a video game that's been out for years that, you know, literally is called The Last of Us, and it's how to survive.
Yeah.
So even these kids who've been sitting inside box playing video games, they have a template of, well, we need to work together, but we got to be smart. We need to look at resources differently, and as we're walking down the street, realize, hey, that's actually food.
Mm-hmm.
So that knowledge base is there, but it's shifting over to, it now has to be actually applied.
Yeah, man, that's you know, I like video games too, but it's like you gotta You can collect all like the mushrooms and crickets and apples and Hyrule all day, but
Zelda.
Yeah, dude, Breath of the Wild. I
Yeah.
wish I could paraglide across town. That would be sweet.
That's what I'm playing to feel like I'm outside.
Exactly, but like you said, actually doing these things is a different matter. I just think everyone should take it as a learning experience. Humble yourself. Try to inform yourself. Be compassionate to people. Realize now that the people you rely on the most are, like minimum wage for the most part people, retailers, people at grocery stores. I'm not talking about healthcare providers for sure, but yeah, we are relying super on them. Just be compassionate to people, and I think it's especially ironic that, Costco is like the place right now, right? And there's lines at Costco for their toilet paper. And Costco for so long has been the company everyone points to, where the CEO takes a small salary, passes, the massive profits they make onto the employees. The employees, get fair pay, benefits, you know what I mean? Like all the things. People love working for Costco. They stay there, until they retire. They get good retirement plans, and this is the company that most people think of first to get through a serious crisis, because that's what they do. If everybody has ever seen Extreme Preppers, it's like there are a lot of people who've been waiting for this moment, and then there are a lot of people who are just new to the game, and they're lining up for their toilet paper, so but I just say take it for a learning experience, learn about this stuff, and be compassionate.
Yes. But when you feel like everybody else got a head start and there's some whole other race that you have to be running, it's hard to feel compassionate.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, well, especially when you see that Wall Street got a $1.5 trillion bailout. They're talking about bailing out airlines, cruise ships, and casinos before they're talking about the regular you and me. So, yeah.
Before that $1,000 check comes. See, and that's perspective and scale, because there's a lot of $1,000 checks, in the equivalent of what they want to bail out all these companies.
It's literally the least they could do for us. They could pay us less, but it's literally the least they could do, and it just tells you. Yeah, well, yeah. Don't get me started on who said what. Don't get me started on who said what. But it's when it's so bold-faced or bald-faced, whatever the saying is, when it's that open that they're just, well, what are we going to do about all these corporations? What are they going to do? It's just like, it's like the recession last time. Got to bail out the banks. What about everybody else? It's like, it's that type of thing. So,
well, we know that pattern, and like you said earlier, we've got to learn and adjust and not be afraid of it. So I'm not afraid of that, because that's the pattern. But I don't like that, and it doesn't really help my community, and my community's realizing that too. And so that's where change comes, looking for the individuals that are trying to help, that are also the guy you see normally, because he's part of the community.
Hey, your garbage man. How about you smile and wave at your garbage man as he drives by? Because all that toilet paper and food waste that people are, now that they're at home.
Plumbers are going to be very popular in a couple weeks.
Well, but I'm really. Think about that. We people love to in the Alex Jones, truther or whatever era. Like, people love to just say the government is bad and the government's corrupt and the government's bad at everything it does. But how about you smile at your garbage man and realize that's a municipal employee? The water that comes to your house, those are more often than not government employees who are bringing that to you. Your government's here for you, man. Like, they're like, it's not just all evil and incompetent and corrupt. You have, people in your community helping keep you safe, keep our community clean. You know what I mean? And they deserve respect and compassion and support. They're supporting us. We should.
I really appreciate that focus because they've been doing that job long before this started.
Yeah.
And they're going to continue that job because it's, for all intents and purposes, it's a very isolated work.
Yeah. Well, think about like law enforcement. I was at Spartan Final the other day, and the SMPD was there because two older ladies started throwing punches at each other over something. People are like losing it. And, the other thing I saw was the SMPD escorting the semi-truck of Costco toilet paper out in front of Costco. You know what I mean? So it's like, these people are literally keeping the peace. Quite literally. So it's like, man, it's good. It's gonna be okay. But realize this next time, next time you want to complain that our city, has a higher sales tax, whatever, than it used to, just remember most of that money went to the public safety, went to the fire department, and went to the police department, and they're helping literally keep the peace in our community right now as people are, somewhat and not so somewhat understandably freaking out,
Yeah, right? You got to laugh about it at the end of the day.
Yeah, and this is the thing. We're going to get a lot of great jokes. We're going to get a lot of great songs, drawings, art. People, if you're a creative type, take the time, be creative, and then you'll, I have my own podcast aspirations, and I'm going to try to start working on stuff and logging content now, and just, we can look back on this and go, man, that was a tough time. I'm old enough. We're I think all old enough. We're what I call the early batch millennials, where we remember seeing 9/11 happen, live on TV.
Grade, dude.
Yeah, and so we remember that. We have a perception of crisis, and again, there's different ways we can react. But
so you're in your early 30s.
Yeah.
You have a reference of crisis, which do you feel the people in their early 20s have, or is this that event for them?
I think the school shooting situation, when you literally have kids who are like, I don't have to worry about going getting shot at school. I get to be off to school, so I don't have to worry about getting shot. Like, I'm not going to say I understand what this young generation is, going through. I work with kids. I teach kids music, and so I hear some of their concerns.
So what is a high school kid concerned about nowadays, or in light of this stuff too?
Getting shot at school. I've had several kids where I work go, hey, what happens? Like, what would happen if a shooter came here? And I go, well, the plan is, we shelter in place, or I would lock the door and we turn the lights off and we shelter in place, and if it gets worse, then we attack the person if we can, and I'll do my best to protect you. So they're aware of all this stuff. They're not, this is the thing, like, our generation, 9/11 happened, and it really, was an ordeal. But it's like you realize we were a generation that the generation before us was like hiding under desks because of the, nuclear scare with the Soviet Union, right?
Dude, I'm old enough that I ducked and covered.
Yeah, we ducked and covered. We ducked and covered, but really it was after. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, you're right. Here in California, we perpetuated that practice because of earthquakes.
Well, yeah. But this is the thing is, we were told duck and cover because the earth could start shaking at any moment, and you know what I mean? And that's just a natural phenomena, But like, the generation before that was told you need to hide under your desk because there could be a mushroom cloud from, the Soviet Union, from Stalin on the horizon. And so this generation of kids, they've been learning to duck and cover because they know it's a very real possibility that some psycho with a gun could enter their campus. So, so they understand. I think the kids understand fear and crisis and stuff, but it's just been this slow rolling crisis. But now we have a big, giant, no doubt this is a huge thing we need to deal with. And, I don't know how it's going to affect the younger kids and all that. I hope, parents can make it as easy as they can, put on some shows or get them some coloring books or something.
Yeah. I just hope my kids make it easier on me. I'll give them all the coloring books they want, but just, they're in a tremendous transition too. And that, that really is part of the way we can work together, is helping, cutting some people some slack, not being as sensitive, because there's a tremendous amount going on, and it's affecting people on many, many different levels. And even if that person is healthy, that's a strain on their system.
Yeah, man.
And so cutting people some slack is a great way to just not make it worse.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, in some ways, that's the whole goal right now, is to not make it worse, to
Yeah.
drop the curve,
Yeah, and with kids specifically, the psychological literature is pretty dang clear. Every moment you're modeling for your child how to be a person, and we also do that with each other, with our neighbors and our community. So if you can model now for your child that in the face of a crisis, we're gonna take it seriously, we're gonna stay informed, we're not gonna panic, we're not gonna freak out and punch somebody out over a bottle of Purell at the whatever store, but we're gonna be calm, but take this seriously, and we're gonna take it as a time to work on some projects around the house, be productive, constructive, and supportive of each other.
Well spoken.
I try my best.
Hey, and way to wrap it up, man.
I've been told I have a way with words.
You feel good about what you had to share? Because I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, it feels like I'm the guest, and it's your guys' show. Is that the case, or did I just hog most of the time? That was supposed to also be yours, Ryan.
No, that's exactly what I wanted.
It really is about making the connections.
Cool.
I don't have a need to just be like, everybody listen to me. Part of it is, if you want to listen to me, I got a lot of good things to say too.
Yeah.
But that's part of that ebb and flow, that give and take, where if you don't know who people are, you're not able to help them. And so me and Jeremy are going to try to touch base with multiple different industries, but all part of the community.
Yeah.
Touch base with them, just like with yourself, kind of go through that wave, but also go, well, we got this. And in that process, we actually connect to people who don't have it. Like you know what I mean? Yeah. Then we try to help connect them to people who are actually able to help.
Yeah. And, you see a lot of stuff on social media about, like, support your local restaurants. They can only do takeout, get some of that, freeze it, buy gift cards. I am definitely all for that. Support your local businesses, support your local community. Well,
you're a small business. You know how tight the margins are.
Yeah, man, they always are. They always are. So
they're going out of business, and they need their business so that they can transition.
Yeah, my dad is a professional bagpipe player up in the Bay Area, and so he's watched all his St. Patrick's Day, which is a big time of year for him. Yeah, he's watched it all disappear. But he said something interesting. He's like, I got totally depressed and started freaking out and just losing my shit. He's like, but but this has kept going. And then he's like, you pay attention, you realize everybody's dealing with this. Restaurants it's not just private gig workers, like
and in a weird way, you don't feel as alone.
That's exactly what he said. He's like, well, it's not just me. He's like, we're all in this.
Right.
He's like, so it's kind of like, he's like, everybody's hurting, so what, he's like, it's a weird thing to say that it made me feel better, but yeah, this is solidarity. Like, we are all in this together. We'll get past this. We're all going to take a hit, but I mean, geez, look at the stock market. everything's taking a hit right now. Everything is taking a hit. But that's because it's a pandemic, man. This is like, this
is what happens.
Yeah.
So we need to adapt, and we need to encourage each other, and we need to help each other, because either the species of human will get by. Yeah, we adapt. We always have.
Yeah. If you have the resources, if you have, the resources to, whatever, pitch in on someone's GoFundMe or buy those to-go orders or gift cards at a local business, by all means, because it will make you feel good to spread that around, and to help in your community. If you have the resources, go for it. If you don't, it's understandable. You got to, I got a lot of,
Well, I would say look for other resources, right? One's a financial resource, one's a time resource, one's,
There you go.
I mean,
yeah.
Some of the old skills that we really like to do that doesn't make much sense in our technology-driven boxes actually are incredibly valuable. And I know it's kind of funny, but I actually do need a piano tuner, So it's like, and so
give me a call. PianoPayne.com.
See, but that's part of this. It's like, hey, once you're feeling comfortable and you're out of your quarantine, that's when, hey, babe, now you can play the piano, and it not have those couple keys out of tune, type of thing. Yeah. And so even then, it becomes a situation of community support and helping. And at that point, you may not need paper dollars, but you may need something else. And this is also comforting because you know who you can call when you need those other things.
Absolutely.
It's powerful stuff.
Hey, Joe.
Yo.
Who else do you think would benefit talking to us?
Or communities that would have a person that would benefit?
Do you remember Hazel from growing up? Her name was Hazel Putney, but her name is Hazel Davalos now.
Yeah, she was into ag a little bit, right?
She's involved with CAUSE, Community Alliance for United for a Sustainable Economy, I believe they're called. And so, they do a lot of outreach with the Spanish-speaking population of the city, the Mixteco-speaking population of the city. And she's a community organizer, so I think she would be fantastic to talk to if you want to,
What's your last name again?
Get Davalos, Davalos, Hazel Davalos. She's just very community, but also organization minded. So, and she works with low income, vulnerable populations all the time. So, I think it would be good, outside of industry. She's definitely in the nonprofit service sector. So I think she'd be a good person to talk to. We have a young, more progressive city council member, Gloria Soto, who might be interesting to get as a young city leader. Might be interesting to get her opinion.
I've talked to her before, trying to help her. I wasn't able to, but I still sat down to talk to her.
Yeah, she's great. She's great, and it's like, she's a politician. Literally, she's a city council member, so she might not have all the time in the world to hang out and do a podcast or whatever. But
she might appreciate the opportunity to share with the local community, like you were saying, just a few key points to help them calm down.
Yeah. Let me think. It might be good to reach out to the I don't know. There's lots of people. I just go into my journalist brain, so I'm like think all the sources and stuff. But there's a lot of folks out here who people look to. So I think it's just look to industry, but also don't be afraid to look to government and nonprofit people.
Fully agreed. So, thank you so much. Feel free to chat, call, whatever.
All right. So are we past like the recorded part of the show?
Let me.
Well, it's still recording, but we passed like.
Well, I just want to take this moment to thank you guys for the call. I had a lot of fun chatting with you. I'm not. it's interesting because I don't have a full-time job as a journalist right now. You know, I'm like a freelancer. So, you know, I amass all this information being, you know, it was my job to be informed for so long, you know, as a newspaper editor, so that now, you know, it's just my habit to, you know, be following stuff and reading every day. So it's kind of nice to actually share that beyond just, you know, arguing with people on Facebook, which I should stop doing. And, you know,
Joe,
and,
we can schedule your phone call.
No, for real.
If you're locked up right now, bro.
Joe, I have a situation where since my wife is out of school and my kids are out of school, my house turned into school.
Yeah, dude, that's great.
And yes, it is, but I've got a ton of work to do, and now I can't do it at my house. So I'm in a situation where I'm going to take, like you were saying, advantage of the opportunity. Tomorrow we're going to Cal Poly to meet with some of their student leaders, and I'm going to teach them how to use some different tools to make their jobs easier and their garden grows better.
Way cool.
And then we're going to meet with someone at Cuesta. You know, so we're using this time, but that also allows us to connect with you whenever, if you feel like, man, actually I'd like to share this part, we can do that too. You just
you let me ramble for quite a bit, so let's give it some time and see where we're at in a little while and see how up or down things have gotten. So, but I appreciate the time and then the opportunity to talk to you guys. Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet.
Hey, Joe.
And cut. What?
What?
I have post-production stuff I want to talk to you about really quick if we're cut.
Awesome.
But what were we going to tell me?
That's it. Thank you. I love you, and I'll call you right back.
Wait. Oh, okay. You're going to call me back?
Oh, post. That means after. Yeah.
All right.
So not recorded. I'm going to call him back again.
Go ahead.
Oh, see, we're figuring out this new app. That's right. Sorry.
Okay, I'll be right back.
All right.
Bye.
I forgot we're on that app that's merged.